Hi, Year 5. So you've written your chapters 3 and 4, and it's time to edit them. Now, here's where I started my chapter 4, and I've got it open on this because actually I've decided that this is the paragraph I'm going to focus on. However, um, when you're editing and improving, the first thing you need to do is read through your chapters out loud and see if you've missed any words out. So when you read it out loud, and you have to read it a little bit slowly, sometimes when you do this for me at school, you add extra little words in, like an and or a but or or you might add an s on the end of a word when you're speaking it, and then it's actually not written down. So you need to then look at it and check, have you actually written that, or are you adding little bits in afterwards? In which case you then need to write those and add them in. So you need to do that throughout both paragraphs 3 and 4. And then you need to check your spelling. Now, actually, there's a funny way of doing this that's much more, that works much better. So you don't automatically try and correct it. So if you read it backwards, it works really well. You see each word separately rather than as part of a big sentence. And so you're much more likely to notice your spelling mistakes. Look for the typical spelling mistakes that you make all the time, like the double P's in stopped or one P in hoped and things like that. Also, your homophones, to, there and there is a big one that you get wrong a lot. I was going to say your, but actually that probably wouldn't be relevant for this particular piece of writing. And then finally, choose a paragraph that you want to rewrite. So I've chosen this one here, my second paragraph in chapter 4, to rewrite it. And at first I was thinking, no, it's brilliant. How am I going to rewrite it for them? But very quickly I realized, no, it wasn't. And there's always things that I can improve. So I've copied and pasted it down here so you can see it, but you might have yours handwritten. That's fine. Just write it somewhere nearby. You can even stick a little flap over the top of the old one if you want. So this is my improved one. I've done it in italics so that you can see. So it did say a deep ache in the pit of his stomach demanded attention. And I haven't completely got rid of that, but it now is down here somewhere. I've rearranged it a little bit. I realised, reading the first paragraph back to myself out loud, that it ended with, he was soaked with a metal bucket of water and all around him were cackles of laughter. And then it doesn't actually mention anything about the fact that he's soaking wet or these people are laughing at him. It goes straight to his hungry stomach. And so I felt that I needed to add something to allow that cohesion so that it went from one paragraph to the next paragraph smoothly. So I've written feeling humiliated because he's just had a bucket of water thrown on him and everyone's laughing and he was asleep and suddenly he's been woken up with a bucket of water being thrown on him, probably by the person that owns the steps that he's sleeping underneath. So I've said feeling humiliated, just checking my spelling of that, humiliated, yep. Jack dragged himself, and I've got some parentheses, dripping wet, because it's important to mention that, I think, away from the women who were squawking, and leant his head against a wall. And then I wanted to use, so I have got his foot still bleeding from his escape, but now I can't write it still in brackets. It needs a new sentence. So he looked down at his foot, and I've used a relative clause instead, which was still bleeding, and wiped the blood off with the back of his hand. So I've actually made a whole sentence now of that bit, which was just in brackets before, something about the fact that his foot is bleeding. And then I've got the demanding attention, which is here, was at the very beginning of my paragraph before, now it's later on. A deep ache in the pit of his stomach demanded attention. And I thought, actually, I need to rearrange those words. So the same words, but I'm rearranging them. So I've got my demanding attention at the beginning as a fronted adverbial and adverb phrase. Demanding attention, comma, a deep ache. And I've given the ache a voice now, which it didn't have in my original. I was trying to point at it, but you can't see my hand. In my original over here, a deep ache in the pit of his stomach demanded attention. Now it's got a voice. Demanding attention, a deep ache growled in the pit of Jack's stomach. So I've just rearranged the words a little bit. I've added some new vocabulary. I'm trying to think about the continuity of one paragraph to the next. and one sentence to the next, making sure that it all fits together a bit better, so that it's more smooth, so that my reader has an image, a vivid image in their head of exactly how it looks. And then finally, I've gone on to say limping to the baker's stall. And I'm wondering if I need an apostrophe here. I'm thinking about it belongs to the baker, so I guess so. Limping to the baker's stall, comma, he felt invisible, which I wrote here. He felt invisible, but I didn't say why he felt invisible, so I thought I should add something there. He felt invisible as people ignored him and his injuries. Then I would carry on. Um, I'm not completely ignoring what's up here. He heard a voice more sympathetic than the baker. She threw some bread at him, and I would carry on writing that here because I haven't gone into enough detail there. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how you can take a good paragraph, because I know that your paragraphs are all good, the ones that I've seen so far, but make it even better. Think about each sentence flowing into the next sentence. Are you giving enough detail? Are you explaining what you mean, or are you expecting them to read your mind? And thinking about the vocabulary that you're using, as well as the initial things, reading it through, make sure it makes sense, check your spelling, check your commas. Have you got commas in the right places? So I look forward to seeing your improvements.